I've watched brilliant, capable women lose the CEO seat in their family business because of a few common mistakes, right? Hi, I'm Uyai. This is video 3 in a series about preparing your daughters to take over the family business. Most of those mistakes can be tied to strategy and also can be tied to the fact that working in a family business is different from working in corporate. When you're working in corporate, there's, usually a clearly defined career path. You might start out as an analyst, you might move on to being a team lead, and then a manager, and then a VP or director, and then the CEO. So usually there's like roughly a career path that that you must follow to get to like the CEO seat, right? It doesn't work that way in a family business. Usually they're different. Family businesses can have all kinds of different ways of working, but they don't often have the same structure that a corporate career path would have, right? So it's not usually a meritocracy. I wish it was all the time. Some family businesses are more structured than others, but a lot of times it is not a meritocracy. This is family, especially if you're related to like the founder, right? There's a lot that goes into it, right? There's a lot of subjectivity. It's emotional, sometimes it's political, sometimes there's like outdated like values about who should take over, outdated values about like who would be a better fit externally, right? Some of that is out of your control, but some of it is in your control. So when I see daughters approach leading in a family business like corporate, I know that they're going to fall into a few traps because you can't approach it the same way and get the top seat. So this is not a place to kind of keep your head down and say, ooh, I'm gonna work so hard. I'm gonna see how much I can do here, and like everybody write like really good reports. If I say that I'm going to be the one to take over, then like everything will be a-okay and I'll just be given the seat. You have to approach it differently, and you have to approach it strategically, okay? Because we don't want to end in tears because you didn't make the right decision at the right time. So I can't tell you how many conversations I've had that sound like this. I've been working in the business for 10 years. I think my dad knows I'm interested, but in leading eventually, but maybe not. What do you think? Do you think Dad's going to call me and we're going to have a discussion and then we're going to be ready to kind of take over? Never. The answer is kind of never. So unless you kind of put in the work to change that dynamic ahead of time, it's not gonna work, right? So it just doesn't work that way. So one of my goals for starting this channel and for also doing these videos, especially this series of like preparing daughters to take leadership in the family office, is really to figure out a way to like help you prepare, right? So figure out a way to, to help you be that person that you want to be. And in terms of socialization, a lot of times daughters are socialized to kind of like put their head down and do the work, through school, through like the way that we raise our daughters, right? So sometimes we're socialized that way. And again, I know it's not like every family, but a lot of families like it will socialize you to just kind of like keep your head down, do the work, keep the peace, do a good job, and then you'll be noticed and then you'll be promoted, right? It doesn't work that way, Just if you want to be promoted in corporate, you have to kind of be strategic about what you need. You also have to do that in family business. The way you approach it is different, but you need to be strategic about how you want to approach it. So we're going to talk through a few things here. We're not going to wait for dad or whoever's leading it to notice, right? And you're not going to wait until it's 6 months until dad retires before you say that you want to step up to lead. You're going to start ahead of time. First, you declare your intention, right? So you're going to call dad or whoever is leading the business. It could be an uncle, could be a cousin, I don't know. Families are different. But we're just gonna use dad to represent whoever is leading the business, right? So you're gonna call dad and you're gonna say, hey, I'm interested in potentially leading this business, right? And you're not gonna be wishy-washy about it. You're going to tell him, yes, I would like to lead this business, right? So you're going to sit and you're going to say, I'd like to work with you to kind of make that happen. So you're not asking for permission when you do this. You're going to declare your intention. You're going to say, okay, this is actually what I want to do. And if you want like a COO role but not a CEO role, that's perfectly okay. But like, you still need to like declare your intention, right? And say, this is what I would like what are the things that I need to do to get there? And in some cases you already know. So in the last video, I spoke about how people might need to build capacity, right? For some people, that's an MBA. For some people, that's getting additional business education. For some people, that's going to kind of do a secondment in another organization. For some people, they're going to look for how to shadow the current COO, or, attend current meetings, join, see what the supply chain's doing. So really get into the nitty-gritty of the business. So it kind of looks different for how you want to prepare. The important thing is that you're strategic and you're telling people your intention. So you're saying, okay, I want to be able to be in a place to say that if anything happens to the founder in 2 years, I am ready to step in and take over this business, right? So, because here's what happens, when you do this, even if your family is not ready to kind of take you seriously, it forces them to sit up and take notice and to say that you're serious. And so when that succession conversation finally happens, then you'll know that your name is already kind of in the ring, and you're not just waiting to say, hope they're gonna select me to be one of the people that are thinking about it. So exactly. So there are different ways of building that capacity, and I've worked with some young ladies on that. And so for some people, just keep in mind that external education really can be the right way to go, but it's not the only way. And just make sure that even if you leave to do that, you're kind of keeping tabs of what is happening in your business as well. Great. And so there are no HR policies protecting you from bias in a family business, right? Some of them have in HR, but depending on how a family business might be structured, right? Sometimes the HR doesn't really have that much power or control if the business is kind of run by a family member, especially if you are part of that family, right? Sometimes the HR is a bit limited in how they can influence and overcome the family dynamics. I've seen a few of them that are pretty strong, but just know that sometimes they don't really have the power to navigate and influence. And so there might not be a clear career path, and there might not also be a way for that HR person to say, okay, I want you to consider this person over that. Not all of them are able to kind of be unbiased, and so you have to kind of take that into consideration, right? So that's the second thing. And then also the third thing is that keep in mind that your competition is not just other qualified candidates, right? It's not just other candidates. So let me take a step back and say explain what I mean by that. So you're fighting, in some cases, tradition. If you're from a very conservative culture, or from your culture that's kind of thinks that, sons are in a better position, or male cousins are in a better position to take over a family business. If you're from that type of family or that type of culture, you're going to have an additional step to kind of cross over if you want to take leadership, right? And it's not wrong. I would not talk down somebody else's culture, but I just want you to be aware that there's a higher bias that you have to kind of overcome, right? And so you have to think about that as well. You can't really do much about that. And then also, you are also going to fight family politics. So even in families that are more progressive, where families can be taken over, sometimes there's a lot of internal family politics. Why is this person getting to take over their business? Or why can't that cousin take it over when he went to business school? Or why can't this cousin, who's always kind of lounging around, but now all of a sudden wants to also work in the business and take over the business, why can't they take it over? And so there's a lot of family politics that you have to be aware of. And so that's why I said that your only competition is not other qualified candidates. It is also family politics. It's also tradition. It's also culture. You're also fighting the fact that it's not an environment like corporate. So I want you to be aware of some of the different things that you are fighting. So basically, you have to actively manage your narrative, right? You have to actively manage your narrative. And something else I want to mention while we're on this topic is that you really also need to build your credibility within the family as a business leader. So if That means going to get an MBA to cement the fact that you can be a business leader. In some families, that might be all that they respect. You know, I've seen some families where somebody was working in the business for 2 or 3 years and did a really good job of learning the business, did a really good job of building relationships, of talking to stakeholders, but in their family there's like a lot of MBAs, and she wouldn't be able to get their stamp of approval unless she had like an advanced business degree, right? And if that's your family situation, then maybe getting an MBA is the right thing to do if you're unable to convince them without that you're capable of running the business, right? So you also have to be sensitive about managing your credibility within the family, right? And in some cases, like, you might need to attend more of the family meetings, right? If they have them. If they're having board meetings, you need to be going to those board meetings, right? If they are having key supplier meetings, you need to be able to attend a few of those so that you can also show your credibility and show your interest to your family, right? Now, again, I know that every family is different, right? Every family has different dynamics, but if you know that your family kind of likes, very, very visible presence in the business, and it's in your heart's desire to kind of take over that business, then you're going to need to also show credibility within your family. So I hope that makes sense, right? So let me see. So let's be specific. So who do you need to gain credibility with? There's different groups and different stakeholders. So the current CEO would be one, so whoever is leading it. In some cases, that's dad, could be an uncle, could be a cousin. So you need to get credibility with them. And how do you do that? Be visible in the things that matter to them. If they're like in finance meetings, planning meetings, if they're meeting key stakeholders, you need to be with them. If there's a board for the family business, I know that not all businesses have that, and honestly, like, some businesses need a board. They really do need a board, but they don't have one. But if there's a board to kind of govern the operations of the family business, you need to be in front of them too, because if there's an active board and they're a good board, they're going to be thinking about succession as well. They're going to be thinking about who's next, what happens when Papa goes away or decides to retire. Like, if there's a good board, they're already thinking about that. So you need to be visible with them as well. If there's any non-family executives, right? So let's say, for example, dad's the CEO, but there's an external VP of finance. If there is somebody else who is like the COO and they're not family members, their input is also going to be important. They might not have the final say, but the input would be important, especially if it's a well-run family business. The input will be important in choosing the next successor. So you need to make sure that you have FaceTime with them and you're understanding how they work. So you're not just going to talk to dad only. You're going to talk to those executives as well. Also, any key clients and any key partners, that would be number 4. That's really important. So for example, if there's 3 clients that make up 50 or 60% of your annual revenue, or they're a key supplier for your inputs, you need to be having FaceTime with them too. You need to make sure you get to know them, because they might not have a direct input on who the next successor is, but dad might talk to them, the CEO might talk to them, the VP might respect their opinion. And so at least for the key clients and the key partners, you have to kind of get that FaceTime. You don't have to talk to every single one, but make sure that you get FaceTime with the key ones. And also the broader family as well. So like, if you have like other family members that are like even tangentially involved in the family business, then it might be a good time to kind of make sure that your intentions are known to them as well. So example, in some families, mom might not be like an active part of the business, or maybe she is, but she probably has influence on like who dad chooses next, right? And so like, it's important to open that conversation and say, okay, I would like to at least begin to speak. Like, I would like to take a higher role in the family business. So talk to mom. If you have cousins that have shares that are active in the business, right? Not just someone that has like a 2% share and really doesn't care, but like if you have someone with like, shareholder capacity and they're kind of looking for how to get involved in the business, make sure you're talking to them too, right? So it's very important to kind of get all the stakeholders in place. So finally, here's how you build the credibility early. So one way you do that is you seek visibility when it's like a strategic context. So if they're picking a new key supplier for something in the business, or if they're looking for a new wealth manager, or if they're looking for like a new state lawyer or something like that, you need to be there kind of. So you need to kind of put your name forward and then actually do the work. So don't just put your name forward for wanting to be part of that, and then you kind of slack and let other people do all the work, and then you come in and kind of take the glory at the end of it. So you need to be like actively involved. So if they're searching for a new lawyer, like, do you have anybody in your Rolodex who can kind of come in and, you know, do the work, right? Or can you lead the search? Can you reach out to your own network in your own capacity, like, and see if anybody is able to come in and take that under control for you. Second is you build individual relationships. So for example, you don't have to wait for like the annual board meeting for you to talk to someone on the board, right? If your father's friend is part of the board, once in a while you can send him a message, say, hey, this is what's going on with the business. Do you have someone in your network that could help us here? Or have you seen this problem in other companies that you advise, right? And like, what do you think we should do, right? Or even if you don't need help with something in the business, like, you can just reach out if you see a post that they've made on LinkedIn, or if you see a place where they kind of need someone in your network who can do something, you can make that referral to them. So you're showing yourself as a credible person to kind of help their business goals move forward. And they'll say, okay, now I see that little Lisa's all grown up and she's ready to kind of, you know, do a little bit more in this business I advise, right? And then also show leadership in other ways as well. So if a vendor or supplier is not doing well, like really not doing well, they're not meeting their targets, they supply late, they don't have product that's kind of like meeting a certain threshold, then you need to kind of be proactive and say, okay, I think we might need to go with somebody else, you know, and maybe don't just say it and allow everyone else to do all the work. Like, you can also run the search and say, okay, I have these other people who we might be willing to try. Let's see if we can try them and see if we can get like a better quality of service, right? And by doing that, you're showing leadership in the way that you are running the business, right? And that kind of puts you, it gives you credibility. So let's recap the 3 mistakes that a lot of daughters make, right? Is what, sometimes waiting to be chosen instead of proactively preparing. So we want you to be proactive about how you show your intention to, you know, be a leader in the business. 2, treating it like corporate instead of like a family business. So kind of waiting to be noticed, waiting until people can kind of say, okay, advance to this step, advance to this step. But meanwhile, what we actually need is for you to kind of say, okay, I want to take a bigger control of this business. What are the things that I need to do to get there, right? And 3, not building credibility with key stakeholders. So for example, just kind of sitting back, working on your own little role within the business and not really taking time to get to know the board, to get to know the CEO or dad who's currently in charge, to get to know other family members, shareholders or not. So you're not really kind of taking charge of building those relationships, but you're kind of waiting until you're invited to things. So we don't want that. You can avoid all 3 of these mistakes, right? You can be strategic and proactive and a little bit more savvy politically. But there's still a gap between like knowing what to do and actually doing it. There's a bit of a gap. And so doing this alone is incredibly difficult, which is why in the next video, I'm going to walk you through like a real case study, a woman who was making like all 3 of these mistakes and how we kind of worked with her to help her on the path to overcoming. Now, there's never really a perfect end to this. It's really a process of becoming, right? Can you tell I'm an Obama fan? So it's really a process of becoming, right? And so you want to kind of see how you're preparing yourself continually for success. And so I realized that it's a difficult thing to do, especially if you have no one to mentor you, no one to guide you. It is a hard thing to do, but we're not going to leave you alone. So at the beginning of this video, I said that I watched a brilliant woman lose the CEO seat to less qualified candidates because of these 3 mistakes. I've also watched some women avoid these mistakes because they got the right coaching, they got the right help, they got the right credibility, and they're able to build family support, right? And it's really strategy. Like, it's not rocket science. It's like you're not just sitting around and folding your legs and like waiting for life to happen to you. This is really about you like figuring out the right strategy and also just implementing it day by day line by line, precept by precept, as they say. So you're not just kind of sitting back and waiting for things to happen to you. This is really for people who are willing to like do the work to get to the next stage. So are you waiting to be chosen, or are you actively preparing? And one of my favorite phrases is, how can we build capacity for this thing that we want to do, right? Because it's okay that like you didn't have all of these things growing up. It's okay that you weren't taught. It's okay that maybe you weren't mentored. Like we all have like things that we could have, used to like hold us back. Like we all have those. We all have hangups. We all have, we've all seen privileges that others have that maybe we don't have. And we all have things like that. But like, what can we do to build capacity and move forward? And the thing is, even if you don't end up getting the CEO role for reasons outside your control, or for example, your goals change. Maybe after doing all of this work, you find out that you don't want to be the CEO of the family business, or you find out that it just really, maybe it was the wrong goal for you, right? But you don't lose the skills that you learned. You don't lose how to build relationships. You don't lose how to talk about what is important to you. You don't lose the fact that you put your foot forward and you're able to train towards something and make changes and work towards a goal. Nobody takes that away from you. So even if you decide that after doing this work that you don't want to be that CEO, you've learned a whole lot of skills that will be useful to you for the rest of your life. And that's the thing that's really powerful about this. So awareness is the first step to change. And I hope that I've been able to kind of make you aware that there's a path towards reaching your goals, right? In the next video, you're going to see what a successful transition looks like from start to finish. So subscribe so you don't miss it. And as always, I have some resources in the comments. So look out for a link to my workbook, Who Gets the Keys. Look out for a link to the book as well, in case you want to read that and kind of get more information. So look out for the links to those. And also, I'll post any other resources I have in the comments. Please leave a comment. Let me know which of these 3 mistakes hit closest to home for you. And I'll see you in video 4 soon.